Hey everyone. Welcome back to the Built to Last show. I have kind of a new friend and colleague with us today, the incredible Veronica Romney. Welcome to the show.
Oh, that's really sweet. Yeah, we are new friends, but my thing is like I don't want to be friends with people that I can just hang out in the shallow end of the pool. I like to be like fast friends in the deep end, and I feel like when you've gone through similar things or you've been behind the scenes of some big teams, you and I instantly bonded over some of that connection. So here we are.
Yeah, we definitely did. And maybe that's a good starting place, Veronica. Yeah,
Okay.
you and I both have, we play very different roles. We
Yeah.
we consult and coach on very different things. You're
Yes.
the expert marketer brander. I'm all things client fulfillment and creating offers and making sure
Yeah.
clients are getting success and that kind of thing. But there's really not that many of us who have gotten the pleasure and the honor of playing this kind of behind the scenes role of some really large companies. So catch us up to
Mhm.
speed. I know who you are. I had actually heard of you before we met, but our listeners may know nothing about
Sure.
you. So kind of catch us up to speed a little bit.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. So I'm a self-identified marketer. I've been a marketer, I mean, since I was 20 years old. That's 17 years. Do the math. I've never deviated off course. I've just exercised the craft in different ways. I started in corporate, so I certainly know the infrastructure of something that's highly like regimented. And then, of course, the calling of the wild, that entrepreneurship bug definitely came when I had my first son, and my parents are entrepreneurs. So, like, I knew it would happen. Like, I knew the ocean would call Moana. And so that's certainly what happened to me. And I left corporate October 2017. And then since then, it's been like, a wild ride because I've been a keynote speaker, I've been a podcast host, I've been certainly a private rainmaker consultant. I've worked with some big names as chief of staff and chief marketing officer, but like have found myself treading these waters where I work with both corporate big brands, faceless brands, but also a crap ton of face brands, like personal brands, which is not necessarily what I sought out to do, but here we are. And so I think a lot of people know me for that, for being kind of behind the scenes of some bigger personalities.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, when you're behind the scenes of some big personalities, you really do see it all. You really do see it all, the
Yes.
good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay.
Yes.
So let's dive right in. We're going to talk all things identity marketing. I am like selfishly very excited for this episode because I feel like
Yay.
I'm just going to ask some questions and sit back and Veronica's just
Okay.
going to like school us and teach us on all the things. So
Oh, cool.
let, I think where I want to start is something that you just shared about your background. You have worked with some really big corporate brands. You've worked with faceless brands,
Yeah.
and now you've been diving into this personal brand
Yeah.
and branding. Not that there's anything new about branding, but the last couple of years, I have heard it become more of this. I don't know if I want to call it a buzzword, but it's just like topic of conversation in the last couple of years. So here's my question, and I am asking this because I am very interested in
Sure.
learning from you about this topic. What is the difference between having a personal brand and a business brand? And do we need to have both?
Uh-huh.
And almost maybe even like use me as an example. I'm a coach slash consultant. Do I need a personal brand and a business brand? How do we separate the two? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, and it's a super fair question. And quite frankly, it's so funny. Like I've been a marketer for so long and it's so easy to do it for other people. And then when it comes to myself, it's like so hard. And I share that with you or anyone who's listening. Like if you struggle to work on your personal brand, it is very common, even for those of us who have marketing pedigrees. It's just because you can't be objective with yourself. You're too in the jar to read the label of your own jar. So just like let's just give credit where credit is due and alleviate that stress. So I work with a lot of marketers, even for me, I'm constantly pinging my team. Like just this morning, I was boxing my team. Like I think I figured it out how I want to introduce myself now because now I'm going to be a book author. Like where does that fall in the lineup? Like shit.
Yeah.
Like so, I still wrestle with it too, just to be clear. But as far as like definition's sake, yes, there is certainly a differentiation between those that are personality driven organizations versus those that are faceless. Like faceless, you're looking at like the big guys, like the Googles of the world, just so and so corporation. Yeah, and they might have a CEO. There might have been a founder that was once living who might have passed or is no longer with the organization or is in the owner's box. Like, there's like, for example, like in the NFL, there's the team. And then there's personal brands, which is like the Patrick Mahomes of the world, or the the Simon Sinek's of the world, or the Brene Browns. Like they definitely have business brands, but they are completely and absolutely should be positioned underneath their personal brand. Because the thing with the personal brand being on top of everything else is that you are then afforded diversification. Like Oprah can have O.co, she can have the O Network, she can have this product line, her collaboration with Weight Watchers. Like she can branch off into 5,000 different directions, but the strength of her empire is clearly on the basis of the equity of her person at the very tippity top. Now, there's pros and cons. Like P. Diddy, just his entire empire is like collapsing before our eyes because he's being accused. He hasn't been like proven, but he's been accused of some horrendous things. And so think about all of the companies underneath his personal brand, his liquor company, his clothing company, his music. I mean, like everybody's trying to like run away from any type of association with this person because his personal brand had a break with reality and integrity. So there's clearly pros and benefits. I think personal brands that don't have an accompanying business brand are also unsellable.
Mm,
Like you can't actually sell a human. That's like slavery. I can't do that. And so like, and also companies that are very personality driven that don't have strong businesses behind them, they're also what we call owner dependent. And those are also are very difficult to sell because people want to see that your business can run without you. So
mhm.
like again, pros and cons of both, and we can get into that if you want to, but I just from the definition's sake, personality driven versus faceless driven.
Okay. And what I'm hearing you say is the personal brand comes
Mm-hmm.
first,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the
Yes.
business brand comes underneath that.
Yeah,
Because,
I'm
go
watching
ahead.
Tom, for example, Tom Brady is like a really good example. My kids are really into tackle football, so I'm like, now I have all these NFL analogies, but like Tom Brady was certainly defined as the quarterback of the Patriots for decades and decades. And now it's really interesting to watch his personal brand evolve over all
Mm,
of these new company entities. So yes, he's like a sports commentator, I think what for Fox News or Fox Sports. He also has like his own YouTube channel. He has a clothing industry. He's gotten his hand slapped for getting
supplements.
inside
Yeah.
to, some of those like those virtual currency companies. So it's just really interesting that he's popping his personal brand. I think he just invested in the Raiders. He has like a
Yep.
soccer team over across the pond. So it's really interesting to see him purposefully position his personal brand on top of all of these new business ventures. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
example of a
Okay.
recent one.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Mhm.
I want to spend a lot of time talking about identity marketing because
Yes.
you've got events coming up about this. You've got a book coming out in
Yes.
January. It's this really amazing thing. I'm super intrigued by it.
Yes.
So I want to spend a lot of time just
Sure.
having you talk about that. So what inspired you? Again, you've been a career marketer. I think you said 17 years. What
Mhm.
inspired you to develop this concept of identity marketing and how does it differ from traditional marketing
Sure.
strategies?
Yeah, no, great question. Well, and also let's just make it a little bit personal. I did not walk into 2024 with like I'm writing a book this year.
Oh,
Like,
really?
no, I
So it
didn't.
was not on the list.
No, I mean, I think it's always been on the bucket list. You know what I mean? Like, I think all of us in our career have like a bucket list, like, oh, a TED Talk, maybe a book one day. Like, I think there's certain goals or milestones that we aspire to achieve. But just real talk, I did not walk into 2024 with this is the year I write this book. Zero. In fact, the opposite. My sister got diagnosed with breast cancer at the end of 2023. So I actually walked into this year going, I'm not taking on a ton. I'm not launching anything. Like I didn't even know what the outcome would be of my sister's story. Thankfully, here we are, almost at the close of the year, and she is cancer free. But I didn't know that
Amazing.
going into the new year. So I have to give credit because like literally I was in my bathroom clothed, let's just be clear, but I was in my bathroom. I think I was like, you know what I mean, like getting my makeup. I don't know. It was just I remember distinctly being in front of my mirror and I kind of, whether you call it an intuitional drop, a prompting, like whatever your language is, I got one of those. I got one of those taps on the shoulder, the invisible hand type of moment. Because I can't say that I wasn't in conversation with myself. I was just standing there. And the word was identity. And I was like, okay. So I wrote it on my mirror. I literally wrote it on my mirror because I didn't know what that meant. And then like as the days, the weeks continue, I wrote marketing. And then it was like, wait a minute, this isn't new for, at least not for, it might be new for you, but it wasn't new for me because if I genuinely reflect on how I personally have done marketing or any of my leadership development programs that I've run, I don't help marketers become better marketers. I convert marketers into rainmakers. I help visionaries see themselves not just as CEOs, which is basically chief everything officer, but I help them try to like live up to the idea like you're a visionary. Your number one visionary KPI is to be a messenger for your mission. So stop being your own CMO. Like I literally have to upgrade my people so they can do better in their new roles. So I've done that in leadership. And then when I think about how I've done my own marketing, I don't even call myself a fractional CMO. I don't like that. Like the way that I talk about myself, the way that I empower other people to think about themselves, how I've led corporate teams. Like when I take over a new department, I give them a new personality because it injects new culture and new excitement behind a new movement, a new leadership. And so like I was at chief of staff at Boss Babe, and I remember calling the operations team the mamacitas because most of us were moms. And then when I took over the marketing department, because it was in disarray, I named our Slack channel the Rainmakers because we make it rain just to be playful. So even in how I've led teams, done my own marketing, it was always on the psychology and the foundation of who you identify as. And I was like, oh, that's what I need to talk about. That's actually the book. The book is
Mm.
identity marketing, which is not the same thing as brand identity. So let me make the distinction. Brand identity is where you intentionally try to differentiate yourself. So it's your logo, it's your colors, it's your typography, like it's your brand voice. Like brand identity is the gift wrapping. Like you are determining how many flowers and bows and things that you want on this package. Identity marketing is inside. It's how people identify on the inside. It's how they call what they call themselves, what they invest in, the actions they take. Like I identify as a fit person. And because I identify as a fit person, I'm going to have fit person behavior. You know, Swifties is an identity of these people, Harley Hogs, like even Patrick Mahomes, they call themselves the Mahomies, like his people. So identity is identity based, which is an internal identification of self concept, not an external gift wrapping, which I think is more commonly known as brand identity.
Okay. Now, yeah. Okay. This is why everybody needs to come to your, this is why everybody needs to go to your intensive because there's a lot of confusion around
Yeah.
what's the difference between marketing and branding,
Yes,
let
for sure.
alone the difference between a personal brand and a corporate brand or a faceless brand, and
Yes.
let alone, I mean, everything you just said, like it is so much to unpack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. So,
Sure.
all right, next question.
Yeah.
Um, how can entrepreneurs and brands uncover and
Yeah.
harness their unique identity so
Yes.
that they can stand out, especially
Yeah.
in a market that I don't really like the word saturated, but there's a lot of people doing business these days and selling a lot of the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, well, it is. It's a red ocean, bleeding red
Yeah,
ocean with sharks. Like, there's no more original thought, unfortunately. I think that's just the nature of welcome to AI, welcome to social media, welcome to the speed in which we can do and conduct work. And like I just listened to Gary Vee, and he's like, in 5 years' time, your kids are gonna be dating artificial influencers. Like, what the hell does
no,
that
thank
mean?
you.
Like my children are dating virtual personalities that will walk and talk like a real human, but they're made in AI. Like I'm like, oh, that's just freaks me out. Anyways, that's
Yeah,
besides the
me
point.
too.
But yeah, like, okay, so this is I just had the opportunity to teach this on stage. So I'm like fresh off the high of like keynoting, which is my absolute favorite thing to do. I definitely identify as a keynote speaker first and foremost. But I got on stage and I was like, look, if we want to do identity marketing, it's not as hard as you might think. It's actually done in 4 steps, but each step can be deeply intimate and personal depending on your people. So, like, step number one is we have to find the identity. And it happens in either two ways. Either your people will call themselves something on their own, or you as a company offer an identity to the people and they have to adopt it. So I'll give you examples. So in the case of your people have named themselves, Taylor Swift Swifties is an example of that. She never called them Swifties. They called themselves Swifties. And then she on interview said out loud, like, yeah, my people call themselves Swifties, and I think it's really cute. So then she like endorsed it.
Mm,
But for years, they called themselves that. That was their name, that was their identity, and then she blessed it, right? And then now it's become it's become a thing, right? Harley Hogs. Hogs is another example. There was this riding group, I think in the 70s or 80s, that literally would put pigs, hogs, on their bikes when they won a race. And they loved it so much that Harley Davidson took the word hog and then turned it into the Harley owners group. So then they like, okay, I'm gonna bless this, I'm gonna own this, and now you can be a Harley hog. So finding it is sometimes your people have already identified or have already started calling themselves something. It actually already happens organically if you have an audience, a community, members, customers. So you can find it usually in your comments, in your survey responses, in your inbox, in like there's
Mhm.
I kind of take people through a process of like where to secret shop yourself.
Hmm.
But the other way is where the company goes, okay, our people haven't identified themselves and they definitely want to be more than just company member. So we need to come up with something creative. We want to offer them an identity. And so this is where marketing kind of goes, okay, based off the language that they're choosing to use, maybe we can be playful. We can come up with some different things. And then there's a process where you have to offer it, which is step number two. You have to validate it. You have to prove it. You can't just like call people something. They have to own it. It's their freaking identity. It's like when I got married, I'm like, I have to choose to legally change my last name. That's my choice. Thank you very much. And it took me a year because I didn't want to do it. Same idea. But your people have to validate it. So like that's when we usually go into step number two, which is like, hey, let's prove that this identity has legs to walk, that it means something and that people want to call themselves. So the story that I like to share for that is this woman, dude, it blew up in 2024. It started in April. This intern, a $15 intern in Texas, was working for a non-alcoholic beverage company called the Mixology, which nobody could actually pronounce. And they needed something because they like literally the underdog of like a $1.5 trillion business. It's wild. You want to talk about red ocean? You want to talk about saturated? Talk about the beverage industry. And so she's working at this like startup company in Texas with this non-alcoholic brand. No one's heard of them. They can barely pronounce the name. She gets permission from this like forward-thinking new CMO. Let's start our own Instagram account, not the brand account, because who knows if this is going to get bad. Let's start a brand new Instagram account. They called it the best marketing strategy ever. She basically said, hey, world, I have 60 days to hit 500,000 followers. And if I don't do that, I basically get fired. But I want to do that to prove to my boss that this will be better than his entire marketing strategy ever. The first video, she goes in the backyard and she takes one of these like mixology cans and she smashes it. That's it. Literally like non-edited, kind of poor quality. The second day she goes to the backyard, smashes it again with a bat, like literally a baseball bat. The third day she does it again, 30 million views on the reel.
What?
30 million views. It takes off. By day 13 or 14 or 15, she wears like she tries like different outfits and stuff. One of the outfits she puts on this like army hat, so it's a cute little army hat, and she treats the can like a grenade. So she's like and like throws it over the fence and pretends that it explodes, like one of the gimmicks. People in the comments lost their minds. Like, we're in it, we're in the fight with you. And they started like adopting almost like this military type of language. So the next day she's like, okay, hashtag smash army, let's do this. And it gets adopted, instantaneous adoption. The smash army literally grows to 527,000 followers in less than 60 days. It gets the attention of Gary Vee. He then gets in the videos. It literally goes
Wow.
bananas. And their sales are, I mean, like they sold out. It was from a $15 intern leveraging a people, calling them the Smash Army. She is literally disrupting one of the most saturated markets on the planet.
I'm so intrigued. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but
Yes.
what was the thought behind smashing the liquor bottle with the bat?
Yeah, so I've had them on my podcast. I actually interviewed Mike Chambers, which is the CMO, and then Nicole Wingard, who is the actual intern, famous intern. So they had cans that were expiring. And they're like, what the hell do we do with these expiring cans? I don't know. Let's just smash them. Because you think about viral content, like, what's like a 15-second video that hits dopamine, that has a payoff. Like, so they're just thinking like, what can we do that's like stupid? And so they
Yeah.
literally had expired product that like, screw it, just go destroy the cans. And that's how they started. But they probably had like an idea board of like 50 different ideas and they were going to try them to see what worked. But that was the one that like literally took off and they smashed everything to the point that the company is no longer called Mixology. It is literally they rebranded to Smashed because of the Smash Army.
So the product is now called Smashed.
Yes.
Oh my
It's the
goodness.
coolest story on the planet.
Well, it also just goes to show you what people are attracted to because you said like,
Totally.
you know, this like silly, stupid little things. And sometimes I
Yeah.
think we think we're like better than, or we need to come across as a certain
Polish.
way or
Yeah.
polished or smart, or I
Yeah.
mean, I'm guilty of that as well. But
Sure.
sometimes it's the stupid, silly stuff that
Mhm.
attracts the majority of the people out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it speaks to the culture of the product. Like, hey, we're not a an alcoholic company. We're doing something different. We want to be different. And oh, here's this intern who's trying to differentiate herself at the start of her career. And she, I mean, like, it's just the ingredients of this narrative and like the invitation to join the fight. Like, how many of us want to stick it to the man, want to stick it to a
Yeah.
former boss? So like, it was all perfect. But the fact that like she discovered without even realizing it, the power of naming this army, naming these people and bringing them to the cause. And now look how far they've gone. You can go to the website right now and join the Smash Army and their swag and merch and everything.
Oh, that's so cool. There's something that you said a little earlier, though, that I actually, it kind of let me breathe a sigh of relief when you said sometimes your audience and your community, they're going to name themselves.
Yep.
And the thought that I thought in my mind is, oh, yes, I don't have to come up with it. Like, thank you, Veronica. I don't have to be the one that comes up with
Yeah.
it. It almost like took the pressure off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well, I
love
mean,
that.
look at me. I'm Rainmaker this and Rainmaker that. And it's because it was a Slack channel name. So like,
I had no idea that's how you came up with that. I thought
yeah.
that was like a thing. That was like a known thing. I was like, well, I don't, I'm not a former marketer. Maybe that's like a thing.
Nope.
I had no idea you named that. You came up with that.
And it was off, it was playful. It was because we had a distressed, demoralized marketing team at one of the biggest personal brand companies you can imagine. And they desperately needed like some reinvigoration. I'm like, okay, what are we gonna call ourselves? Well, we'd certainly make it rain. And it was just like I was me being stupid. It was my
Yeah.
alter ego that was just having fun and like trying to like empower some demoralized humans. Yeah.
Yeah. I was in an organization. I was part of a Michael Burnoff's community. I don't know if
Mhm.
you've ever heard of him. Do you know Michael?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm not currently in it, but you can go up through different levels and different
Sure.
programs. Everything's in person. So no matter what he's selling, like you are flying all the way out to
With
Arizona multiple
him.
times a year and you are in person. There's not coaching programs
I
like,
kind of
you
love
know,
that too. I love the
it's
proximity.
interesting.
Yeah.
One of the first things I noticed though, when we were in the waiting room, he owns his own building, so not the waiting room. Sounds like he has a doctor's office. He does have his own building lobby. We'll call
The
it the lobby.
lobby. Mhm.
We're on the lobby and everybody's like wearing the his merch too because he does that. And one of the questions that I was asking folks in the lobby as we were waiting to go in one morning is, is this your first time at this event? Have you been here a long time? And one of the first things that caught my attention is I heard people saying like, "Oh, this is my third time. This is my seventh time. Oh, I've been here for 10 years. I've been here for 15 years." And one of the things that he has done is he does have a name for his community.
Yeah, of
And when you
course.
get into his inner circle, we're called
Yep.
wizards.
Yep.
So everybody calls themselves a wizard and he calls us a wizard. And look, that's not the only reason why people are staying there for 10 or 15 years, but it's just like the Swifties, which I had no idea. I don't follow any of that. I had no idea they named themselves.
They
I just
did.
assumed like she came up with it. But
Nope.
it does like, what does that create? Like, can you talk about the psychology behind that? What is that creating for a
Well,
community?
yeah, I mean, from the jump, like it is unsafe to be alone. It is more literally physically safe to be within the walls of a community so that like in survival moments, you have other people to protect you. So like this is just how we're built. Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, belonging community is literally psychologically needed for us. And so we seek it out, whether we are provided it at home or we're not. I think that's actually why you see a lot of young men and women join gangs and stuff because there's an absence of belonging and love at home. And so it's very appealing to then like be part of something, even if that part of something is bad or they do bad things. Like if you go into the therapy like the rabbit hole that is psychological therapy, you'll see a lot of those case studies and like the root of why people join the things that they do. One of my favorite classes growing up was social anthropology, just how cultures like determine rules to live. And so, yeah, like we desperately want to be a part of a community, and also having somebody else define us is much easier than defining ourselves. We just talked about this at the start of this podcast. Like it is so hard to label ourselves, to do our own personal branding, but how relief orienting is it that somebody goes, "Hey, do you want to be a rainmaker?" Like, yeah, I want to be a
Mm,
rainmaker. Like there's just something really exciting about joining something that already has depth of meaning, that has the safety of numbers. And so this is just something, this is just how we're built, literally.
yeah. Yeah, it's so true. No, it's so true. I remember when I was in Michael Bernard, just keep using him as an example. I was in his community for a couple of years. And when you left, because we were always in person,
Mm-hmm.
you had this feeling, like this
I
internal
know.
feeling and this sense on the inside, like these are my people and this is my
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
And you weren't necessarily coming back to get the information that he was training on or teaching. The pull and the draw was feeling like you were so connected to these people,
Totally.
and these people got you, understood you because they were like you had
Totally.
similar beliefs and values, and it really did feel like this family
Yeah.
outside of your regular
Yeah.
family that you live with. And it just made me want to keep going.
Yeah. Which is why step three in my identity code process is, it's called name it, but it really means like give depth of meaning to the name. So you can't be cutesy. You can't be like, oh, you're a rainmaker. Like, well, what the hell does that mean? Or like, what does it mean? What does it mean? And I'm a mother, and I remember when I like literally birthed my children, like usually one of the top questions that you get is like, "What'd you name him?" After you find out the gender, like, "Oh, it's a boy or girl?" Like, "Okay, it's a boy. What are you gonna name him?" "Oh, this is Miles," or "This is James." And then the next inquisitive question is, "Why'd you name him Miles and James?" Like we want to understand the meaning behind the name. It's no different when you're giving people an identity. Like, what does it mean to be a part of the Smash Army? What does it mean to be a funnel hacker from ClickFunnels? Like, what does it mean to be a wizard? And so one of the examples that I share in the book, and also when I do a keynote on this, is Copy Posse, which is Alex Catoni. So if you're not familiar with this woman named Alex Catoni, she's a Canadian entrepreneur. She has built this, like, I don't want to use the word cult, because like she's actually, the reason that she built what she built was that she was anti bro marketing, and she wanted to de-duchify the marketing world. Like literally that's on her website. And so she helps copywriters do it with integrity, do it with authenticity and vulnerability. Like she just wanted copywriters to be empowered to do it a different way. And so she names them the copy posse, and they have big posse energy. And it's like this whole, I mean, like literally you can go to the website. You'll see the non-negotiables of what it means to be a copy posse member. You'll see the posse philosophy. If you join any of her programs, not only are you a posse member, but then you are also like a rainmaker, because she has a program where they like literally a queen, like the reign of a queen kind of thing. And like it's identity on top of identity on top of identity. And it's giving depth and meaning and dimension to what it means to say, I am a posse member. And that's a really important step that I think a lot of people miss. And when then they miss, it becomes gimmicky and shallow. We don't want your identity marketing play to be ever accused of being gimmicky, inauthentic, or shallow.
Mhm. Yeah, as I'm listening to you talk, yes, it's the identity of the brand and the business, but it's also the identity of the community.
100%.
Because we're talking a lot of our examples that we're both sharing, it is the community feel.
100%. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
people. Yeah, it is the
Yeah, it's the
people.
people. Amazing.
Yeah, and it's
What's step
personal to
4?
them. So, oh yeah. So, step four, this is probably my favorite just because this is where I think things come to life. Step four is where we dress it. So I want your identity to feel like it's a real freaking person. Like if your wizard was walking and talking and conversing, how would you know without them disclosing to you that they're a wizard, that they were clearly a wizard? Like if you see a Swifty, you know exactly what a Swifty looks like. Like right now, close your, like you, all of us, whether you identify as a Swifty or not, if you close your eyes, you're like, what does a Swifty look like? You're thinking it's a girl with tons of friendship bracelets, maybe some like sequins
Sequins.
or fringe. colors. Like, I mean, you go to an NFL game and you'll see a Swiftie because you can literally see them. They dress a particular way, they conduct themselves in a particular manner, like their mannerisms is like up and lifting, and they're just so friendly. Like literally you can tell when you see a Swiftie. Same thing when you a Harley Hog, like they have their riding leathers and they have their glasses and their helmets and they have their bikes, and it's like you can tell the identity is a personification. Like you are literally making an intangible concept feel tangible and humanistic. So we dress it. Like you give it clothing. What if it had a Spotify playlist? What would it be listening to? If it was hanging out with friends, who would be in its friend circle? If you went into the house, if you went into a rainmaker's house, would it have this kind of velvety color red? Probably. Like it's the personification. So then the final part of identity marketing is where we dress it and bring it to life.
Okay. So this has me wondering, at what
Yes.
point in someone's business growth journey
Ooh,
is it important to go in this
yeah,
direction? Because,
yeah,
a lot of the people listening to this show, it's a lot of coaches, a lot of,
sure,
people who are growing businesses online at
sure.
various different stages.
Yeah,
And I am personally someone who is all about like revenue in first position, focus on sales, focus on making money, like get
sure,
yourself to a certain place before
sure.
you start doing things that aren't necessarily directly connected to a
Yeah,
sale and making money. So
yeah.
is this something, talk to the small business owner. At what point in their phases of business growth
Yeah,
is this
yeah,
really important? They need to be putting time, effort, and attention into it.
totally. So, literally, I just gave a couple examples on this podcast, but if you read the book that's coming out, right, January 2025, super excited. There's examples on top of examples on top of examples of both Fortune 100 companies utilizing, leveraging the psychology of identity in this play, and also literally ground zero companies, marketing interns with zero marketing budget. Like one of the stories that I share is a company called Red Ants Pants. They make workwear for women. And this woman, I love her. Her name is Sarah. She literally started this in the middle of nowhere, Bozeman, Montana. And she only made these pants because nobody would sell pants for women 20 years ago for hard labor. Like Dickies wasn't doing it, Carhartt wasn't going to do it, Blue Jean, like no one was interested in taking on this like demographic. She's like, screw it, I guess not. How hard is it to start a business? And so she takes on this endeavor. She calls them red ants pants because it's clever, but also because in a red ant colony, the red ant female does all the work where the red ant male breeds and dies. So it works very well.
So interesting.
And from the jump, she was a direct to consumer product, meaning she didn't like go through like Nordstrom or like a third party buyer or seller. She wanted to sell pants directly to women. So she got like an Airstreamer, her truck, and her border collie, and literally did a tour to pants and went to all these like rural farm town, population less than 1,000 type of cities through North America, and invited people to join the ant hill, to join the colony, to be a red ant. And now, 20 years later, they do like music festivals in the middle of cow pastures that have 18,000 red ant members that come. You have country artists that hit the stage wearing the red ants pants because of what it symbolically means. There was a woman who was having surgery who decided to wear her pants in the surgical room because it made her feel safe. Like from the beginning, this woman created identity in the pant, in the name, in the colony when she was literally nothing. So there are countless examples where you don't have to be at a particular size for you to leverage identity marketing. Actually, the complete opposite. The sooner you do it, the better.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. You've probably read this book. If you haven't, it's really good. It's called The Brand Flip.
Mm-mm.
Okay. It's really good. Get it.
Okay.
Like read it. It's good.
Deal.
You'd like it. It's called The Brand Flip. And I'm pretty sure he's making up like a fictitious business and business owner, but he
Yeah.
kind of goes through this process of branding and expanding. And the fictitious business is a tea company. And
Okay.
so he starts talking about like, what do you do year one? What do you do
Yeah.
year two? It's not like you're doing everything all at once. Like, it's not like this
Yeah.
Reddit ant pant had
Yeah.
18,000
Yeah.
people in a pasture like in year one. So
No.
can you
Yeah.
unpack that a little bit? Like, yes, start early with branding, start early with identity marketing, like
Yes.
start right out of the gate.
Yes.
And I think sometimes people think, oh my gosh, I have to know all of this. Like right now, I have to start all this right now. And I don't think you do. So
No.
what does that look like? Year one, year two, year three? Like how does that actually build? And I want to hear you share this in a way where people are okay with, I don't have to have all the answers like immediately, and I don't have to have the 18,000 people in the pasture immediately, but maybe that's year two, or maybe that's year three.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with us if we don't have it all executed in, year one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is where the DNA of the creator is kind of everything.
Mm,
Like, I was talking to Nicole from Smashed. I was like, I asked her on the podcast, I'm like, what does it mean to be a Smash Army member? And she started giving me all of these like attributes of their quality and their nature. And then literally on camera, she has this like in the moment with me on camera, she goes, I think I'm having this like realization epiphany that like the Smash Army was me. Because she was actually a Miss Texas competitor. Like she was in the pageantry world. Her identity was polished, perfect. Nothing would ever get on Instagram or social media that wasn't like, I mean, like glamour shots, right? And so the fact that she joined this company and they asked her to be wildly nerdy, unpolished, unrefined, raw, crazy, whatever on Instagram. She's like, you would never have caught me doing that. And so, like, in fact, I think the people that joined the Smash Army was because they saw themselves in me and I saw myself in them. And it was a part of me that I wasn't ever able to actually express even when I was a child. I was like, oh my gosh, like we're having this moment right now. But I think about all of these identities. I think about Harley Hogs. I think about Taylor Swift Swifties. I think about Sarah Calhoun with Red Ants Pants. Like she was born on a farm too. Her
mm,
identity was hard worker and I can do the labor of a man. And like
mm,
just I think a lot of these identities, if we really go back, they have certainly have root and origin in the DNA of its creator and founder.
mm.
And so like that's I think the one thing that sometimes we think that marketing is outside of us, but the truth is marketing is an expression of us. Like it is. And same thing with branding and same thing with your identity marketing play. Like eventually your community will make it its own. Like I was asking Olivia Levin, she runs this Instagram account for Taylor Swift called Swifties for Eternity. She's been running it for 11 years. It has like 600,000 followers. It's crazy big. And I'm like, the way that you talk about being a Swiftie, it has nothing to do with Taylor anymore. Like it's almost like its own thing. She's like, it's absolutely its own thing. So like eventually the identity itself will mature on its own. But at the very origin of you wanting to implement identity marketing, you don't have to look any further than yourself.
That's good news.
Yeah, it is
That's
actually
really
like
good
it's really
news.
authentic.
Yeah. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, I would never be able to dig that out of myself. So we need to hire somebody
Oh,
like you or read your book or come to your intensive.
sure.
So tell us about all those things because people are like, okay, where do I learn from
Well,
Veronica?
yeah, I listen, the book it is nonfiction prescription. Like it is literally you can pick it up and I'm kind of the same way by the way. Like I'll read Traction or Story Brand, like I read these books, I'm like, I got it. Now there comes a point even with your confidence, because I have that same problem. Like there will come a point where I'm like, I really want somebody to look over my work. Like maybe it's the straight A student in me or teacher's pet, but like there does come a point where like even in my self-implementation from a book or workbook, I want the validation to know that I'm doing it correct. I want that peace of
Mm,
mind. So we've created these kind of 2-day marketing, identity marketing intensives that they're basically virtual workshops where we walk you through all 4 steps. You have an identity marketing coach. I'm actually a part of it as well. We have bazillions of assets to like expedite the time so that you can just like literally get validation within 2 days. Like, yes, there is that experience if you're wanting to do it with some kind of level of an accompaniment, we can accompany you through that transformation. But the book is intended for you to self-implement. So go forth and self-implement. More power to you.
okay. And I think I saw your intensives. They are limited to a small group of people, right? Eight? Is it eight
Yeah,
people?
my whole thing is intimacy and proximity. It's very difficult to transform when you're in a room of 500 people. Like it's just no one enjoys that experience. I certainly don't. So yes, we do. Even if we had a a large number of attendees, we curate all of the breakout rooms. We make everything small so that you are never lost in the shuffle. I had one attendee struggle that first day, and literally that night I was like messaging her privately, like, consider me your private rainmaker. You will not get lost. Like, no sheep left. And so by
Yeah.
the day 2 in the morning, she had this crazy breakthrough because we were like workshopping it all night. So like, you will absolutely be accounted for. Yeah.
And who's a good fit for this? Is it just for people who are CMOs of companies, or is it for people like me who I have my own
Gosh.
business as a coach?
Yeah. So this is the cool thing is that it's a marketing engine. It's a marketing framework. So it really is accessible to anybody. We've had literally big brands gone through and their entire marketing team, like a team of 5 to 10, like the whole team goes. Or we've had solopreneurs and then they're coming in because they're literally doing everything themselves. So we've had a combination of faceless brands, personal brands, solopreneurs, or big ass corporations and teams. We've literally had like all of the above because again, it's just a marketing framework. Are you interested in implementing this framework in your business?
Yeah, got it. Oh, I love that. I love the
Yeah,
diversity of that.
same. It's
It
actually
works
really
for anybody.
fun. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really fun.
amazing. All right, where do we find out about this intensive?
Okay, well, everything's going to be on veronicaromney.com always and forever because that's my hub. But the intensives are on yoridentitymarketing.com.
Awesome. All right, and that's in the show notes as well. Veronica, this was incredible. You're like master
Thanks.
identity marketing
Stop
teacher, like the
it.
sage.
I'm on a high. I think I told you this before right before we push record. Like I'm just on a high. This is something that first of all, it was divinely given. So let's be very clear. I didn't seek this out. And number two, I'm like offering it to the world and the people that are consuming it. It's like, Veronica, this is like water in a desert because everybody's so effing tired of the same BS marketing. And so like my thing is like stop pushing buy me, buy this, like pitch slapping them and just invite people to be this, become this. And it just feels so much better. And I think that's what people are really gravitating towards.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. I think the tides are changing in the
Yes,
marketplace.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, such a pleasure to have you. You are certainly pioneering this big change and
Thank you.
transformation that we see happening in the business world. I mean, every level in every sector.
Thank you.
So appreciate you so much. Uh, all that information is in the show notes, and those intensives are coming up soon. This is this calendar year. So they're happening in
Mhm.
November. Anything in December or just November?
Yeah, no, we've had October, 2 in November, 1 in December. So let's
Okay.
do this.
Amazing. So you've got 3 opportunities remaining. All
Yes.
right, Veronica, thank you so much for being with
Thanks,
us today. I
Megan.
appreciate you. All right. Bye for now.